The story I'm about to tell was inspired by a blog that my great granddaughter Rachel wrote called Oh God, My Life is Over. She described her uh, efforts at getting into the college of her dreams, starting with the University of Chicago and then MIT and a number of others. And she describes the difficulties of accepting rejections, of taking a year off and hoping that that might make her more acceptable, and then describing similar experiences of friends and finding out that when it was all over, whatever she got or they got turned out to be highly satisfactory. My story begins when I came back from the Pacific, um, World War II. I was like probably hundreds of other thousands physicians, hundreds of thousands of other physicians who wanted additional training. I had had an internship after medical school, so I could have been a general practitioner, but I wanted more than that. So I thought about it and began sending out letters, and I got one rejection after another, and I knew the mails were filled by letters from other doctors. Not having any luck, I was inspired to call my friend Herschel Cohen. Herschel had been my roommate in my first year of medical school and at our fraternity house. He had not gone into the service, and I know it had training and was in practice with the two best internists in the city of Cleveland. He said he would give it a try, called me back, said he had an idea what I might do. Their position was open at Cleveland City Hospital in the chest section, and that if I took that at the end of a year or so, if I did well, I might get a good recommendation to go to be transferred to the Department of Medicine. And from there, my pathway would be clear where I could finish my training. I knew it was a long chance, but it was all that I had. And the medicine department was highly desirable. So we moved to Cleveland, that is, Yvette and Richard and I. The area was a slum, but it didn't matter. We were together, and I had something that would give me good training. In addition, since most of the patients had tuberculosis and the treatment at the time was bed rest primarily, I was not able to interview my patients from 2 to 4 in the afternoon where they were sleeping, which gave me time to sleep or use the dark room that had all the materials that I might need, including an enlarger. So I practice my photography skills. The year went well. I learned a great deal about basic lung disease, how the lung reacts. When the end of the year came and I asked for a recommendation, I realized there were 2 other residents who were with me. So all 3 of us were asking for a recommendation to the Department of Medicine. Bad news came back. The chief, a kind of fuddy-duddy, said he didn't want to give a recommendation for any one of us because it might hurt the feelings of the other 2. That was a shocker, but I kind of shook myself and decided I had to go see what else might be available. First thing I did was go to the Mayo Clinic. I know it was a long chance, but I also knew that the neurosurgeon for whom I gave anesthetics at the 58th Attack Hospital on Cebu in the Philippines was now in training at the Mayo Clinic and was well up the ladder of authority, and I thought he might be able to see me, give me some help. I called him. It turned out he was at home with a bad cold. I visited him. He kind of shook his head and he said, I don't know if I could help you. If you want to come to the neurosurgical department, I think I could do something, but I'll give it a try. So he wrote me a note to Dr. Comfort, who was the head of the section of medicine. I got an introduction to him. He shook his head and said the need for residents and fellows was overstocked. I did take time to have a gastrointestinal examination because I was having trouble as a result of amoebic dysentery. My next place to look was New York. I learned that the roommate in medical school in 2nd and 3rd, 4th years was Harold Brodsky, and I found him at the Falk Clinic where he was getting special training in OB-GYN surgery. He didn't say he couldn't help me, but it was obvious he didn't have anything to offer. He gave me directions to Bellevue. I went to Bellevue. The surgeon who interviewed me had his desk facing the wall, so he never looked at me while he questioned me. From there, I went to the lay clinic. I forget how many places I went to, and became more and more discouraged. It was the end of the year when I was standing in front of the RCA building in New York. I didn't know what I was going to do. I guess I decided I was going to go home and be a general practitioner. When out of the door came Lou Landy and his wife. Lou was a general practitioner when I lived in Aliquippa. He had dropped his practice, gone into Pittsburgh, got special training in cardiology, and set up a practice, and apparently was doing very well. At the time, our fraternity was having its annual meeting and big party. Lou said to me, "Dan, are you here for the Phi DE party?" And I said, "No, I'm looking for a residency." He said, "Well," I said, "I've had no luck." He said, "I can get you a residency in the Veterans Administration in New Orleans." Now, what I knew about the Veterans Administration hospitals was not very helpful or encouraging. The VA had dumped its veterans in Houston in a public health institution. I knew the care was not very good because I knew the physician in charge was not considered to be very competent. So I said, "Lou, thanks. Let me think about it." I went home, and as time passed, I realized I was kidding myself. There was really no other place that I could turn. So I called Lou and I said, "Lou, I'll take up your offer. I'll accept that residency." I entered my time at the VA. One part of the training had a great deal to offer. That is, I only had to work from 8 to 5, 5 days a week, and a half day on Saturday. Someone else was assigned to take calls in the evening and weekend, so that was great. But other things turned out to be just ideal. The chief of medicine had been a researcher with a gastroenterologist in Philadelphia. He was not terribly interested in our getting our patients well. He was more interested that we thought about our patients and understood what was going on. So that was my chief in medicine. We had an electrocardiographer who came out a couple times a week, and when we were on service, we would sit down with him, and he would teach us about electrocardiograms. We had several attending physicians who made rounds twice a week. One was George Birch, who was chairman of the Department of Medicine at Tulane Medical School, and the other, whose name I can't remember, was a kind of individual who read unusual journals of medicine, specialty journals, and would come in with the most interesting approach to new diseases and concepts that we never heard of. A radiologist was absolutely wonderful. He enjoyed showing us what our x-rays on our patients showed. We had attendings who were in practice and were also on staff at Tulane and LSU medical schools. We were responsible for completing our patients' charts, whereas often in the residencies, we just had to sign our name to the final progress note, turn it over to someone else who filled in the proper diagnoses and so on. But that all became our own responsibility. So I learned a great deal. When it was all over, I realized that that was only the beginning of my becoming a good physician, but it was a good beginning. It was a solid beginning. It would take me another 8 to 10 years of practice to understand what a great physician could be. It was a great pleasure.